Do you like the Music City Work Club?
I do like the Music City Work Club.
Why?
So what it has done, in the past few months is when I come in, basically when I started coming in, I had a goal, right? I had things I wanted to achieve, and the leaders or management at Music City Work Club all came to me and said, what is it you're trying to achieve? What are your goals? Didn't matter what they were, didn't matter who I was, whatever those goals are, this place wants to help you achieve them. If it's, networking, if it's trying to get into a new industry, find a new job, if it's growing your own business, whether that be, part of a company that you work for or starting your own company, this place wants to help you achieve that goal and provide resources for you to achieve that goal.
How has it changed in the last few months compared to before? How long were you a member?
I was a member for a few months. I'm going to say 4 or 5 months before, and the change is drastic.
Really?
Yeah. I mean, it was a good co-working space, but that's all it was. No one talked to anyone. I maybe had conversations with 2 other people.
And you're an extroverted guy, so it wasn't just because...
I'm a very extroverted guy. I can sit down and do something like this off the cuff, but maybe had 2 conversations with 2 different people here before you guys took over. And was it a space where you could come in and sit silently on your computer and, do whatever work you needed? Yeah. And that was fine. But this is taking it to a next level of, I feel like you're getting far more for your investment every month than you were beforehand.
So you'd encourage people that are solopreneurs, maybe small business owners or remote workers to come in and check it out?
100%.
I know I've got little kids running around at home. It's hard for me to get into a productive mindset when I'm at home. And I was about ready to drop $10,000 on turning a space of my home into a state-of-the-art podcast studio. But coming to Music City Work Club and seeing this podcast studio, and the access that we as members have to it, I don't have to spend that $10,000 anymore. I can just spend a couple $100 a month on a membership and do stuff like this on the fly. And it's just awesome.
And that's why I think it's great for small business owners.
Yeah.
Because that's a huge thing. I'm a big podcast person. I have made a couple guest appearances on podcasts, not to brag. But I have found that market recently where everything I was listening to was national, podcasts, big time podcasts, but they're really effective from a local level.
Yeah.
I've started listening to Nashville specific business podcasts, right? Whether it's about, healthcare, my own industry, or, the tech industry in Nashville. That's how a lot of these, especially startup businesses, how their founders and CEOs are marketing their platforms, services, products, is going on to podcasts. And they're not these gigantic, top 10 in the country podcasts. They're local Nashville podcasts that a lot of people listen to. And that's something you can do here for, like you said, $200 a month. You don't need some big fancy podcast studio. You don't have to worry about the editing and the acoustics of, doing it in your living room. You can come into for all intents and purposes, a world-class podcast studio and do it, for the low price of, a couple $100 a month.
Yep. It's a really good model. And I've found too, from my experience, it doesn't really matter how many listeners your podcast has. Almost no one will say no to being a guest on a podcast as long as it looks good and it sounds good, because it's free content. Yeah. And so from a sales perspective or from a business growth perspective, the number one thing I think any small business owner can do, even large business owners or executives can do to drive business, is start a regular podcast and then invite the guests that are actually your prospects to come onto the podcast for, even if it's just a 15-minute episode or a 30-minute episode. It's an excuse to have a meeting with someone that you actually want to upsell down the road. And that's one of the reasons why we called this studio the HoneyPod studio. Yeah. It's because the idea is you attract people that you want to have a meeting with or meet anyway for business reasons to come in, you build rapport, and then you see if business develops out of that.
Yeah. I mean, it gives you, I feel like too, if you bring someone in, for a podcast, right? If you ask someone to be a guest on your podcast, and, you know, maybe you've just started this podcast. This is your first guest, right? And you do it here. That's going to give you, like, it's going to make you legit.
Yeah.
Like your first guest coming in and being like, wow, like this is where you do this,
Right?
You know, how did you manage this? And then, you know, they'll be able to kind of in a word of mouth way go out and tell other leaders in whatever industry it is, whatever your podcast is about, like, oh yeah, you know, I went on that podcast. It was great. You know, like
if your guest has to wait for a few minutes in the front area, it's like they're waiting in a private club.
Yeah.
Right. With coffee and it's
can I get you anything? You know,
yeah. And they feel like, holy shit, you've got your own like green room. That's an entire private club here in Nashville.
Yeah.
It's just baller, man. It's awesome.
No, I think it's a great place. Again, whatever your reasoning is for joining this place, for becoming a member at Music City Work Club, I think you'll see a return on that investment.
Yeah, 100%.
Again, it just whether it's podcasts, whether it's strictly a co-working space, I want to sit down, put my headphones on, and shut up and not talk to anyone, or it's, you know, hey, I don't even know exactly what I want to do with this place, but I'm interested and I want to come in and meet people, go to these networking events, and just kind of expand my horizons. You will be able to do that and see a return on, you know, whatever you put into it.
Hell yeah. Thanks, Taylor.